Good Monday morning. I hope that you had a wonderful Sabbath and are looking forward to a great week, and God has wonderful things in store for you. This is Monday Matters, where every Monday I take a few minutes to talk about something that makes your life healthier, happier, and perhaps a little bit holier. And so thank you for joining in. My name is Mike Courtney, and this is kind of a regular thing that I do. After all this time, I'm still not 100% sure why. I'm not 100% sure if people even listen, but I feel like it's something I'm supposed to do. And it's just kind of the topic du jour. Whatever pops up seems to be the appropriate thing to talk about. Today, I want to tell you a story and make an application to that story. Let me give you a verse of scripture. This is a time for me always in my devotional study where I'm looking at kind of the post-resurrection Jesus. I'm leading a Bible study at our church on Wednesday nights about that. I lead a Bible study on Thursday mornings with a group of men, and we're talking about the post-resurrection Jesus. And in my own devotional life, I spend a lot of time. So here's one of the observations of the post-resurrection Jesus. He's talking to Peter on the seashore, and he's that famous statement where he says, "Feed my sheep, feed my sheep." It says that 3 times. Some people say that's in response to Peter's denial of Christ 3 times and Jesus said to him, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Feed my sheep, feed my sheep." But he says this in a part of that. When you were younger, you dressed yourself. You went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. There is something about getting old that happens to us whether we like it or not. Just a little while ago, I was at Caleb's house, my third grandson. Caleb is 3. He has a little scavenger hunt game that his parents have gotten for him. It's just cards you flip over and says, "Can you find a window?" And you go to the window. "Can you find a chair? Can you find something green?" And so Caleb is doing all those things. I'm reading those to him. He's doing all those things. I said, one of them was, "Can you find something old?" And he said, "Well, you, Poppy, see, you're old." I said, "Thanks a lot, Caleb. That's just what I needed." So here's the story. This weekend, 2 men from the church, my church, they'd invited me for a while, and we decided to go to Gatlinburg and to backpack up Mount LeConte. Mount LeConte is the 3rd highest peak in the Smokies. It's about close to 6,300 feet. Now, if you're from out west, that doesn't seem like a lot, but here, that's a lot. And so we were going to hike up Mount LeConte with our backpacks, camp out, get on the Appalachian Trail, hike, camp another day, and then come back down. I'm all excited. It's going to be fun. My wife is scared to death, says I shouldn't go. My kids tell me I'm crazy. Caleb tells his kindergarten or pre-kindergarten teacher, "My Poppy C is going to go climb a mountain and camp out for 2 days." So it's just a big deal. It's a big deal. And so we start out. Well, we stopped at Grandma's Kitchen in Cookeville on the way, which is the home of the world's largest omelets and pancakes. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe that was not a great start. By the time we got to the trailhead and ready to start up, it was probably 3:00 in the afternoon. And so we started hiking up. Now, my backpack probably weighs 25 pounds or so until you add the water that you need to take up. You add another 4 or 5 pounds. So it goes from 25 pounds to about 110 pounds. I put that backpack on and I thought, I'm not going to be able to walk across the parking lot, much less climb up this mountain. But I'm not going to embarrass myself in front of my 2 friends. So I decided we're going to do it. We're going to try it. So we climb and we climb and we climb and we climb. And after about 2.5 hours or 3 hours, we are at Alum Cave, which is the supposed halfway point. So we stop for a break. Now, by this time, it's 4:30, 5 o'clock maybe. And 2 things happen. One is there's a sign that says, "We have climbed 2.3 miles and Mount LeConte is 2.7 miles yet to go." We're not halfway. We've been climbing for 2.5 hours and we're not halfway. And then there is a woman who is coming down, a young girl who's coming down, and she's not even talking to me, but I overhear her talking to somebody else saying, well, the trail from the trailhead to Alum Cave is moderate. From Alum Cave to Mount LeConte is strenuous. I'm gasping for breath. I can barely stand up. And she's saying, you got further to go than you've already gone, and it's harder than it's been. Well, to my shame and my chagrin, I said to the men, I don't think I can do it. I mean, I think by the time we get there, it's going to be dark. I'm going to be climbing a mountain in the dark, barely able to breathe. The life flight is not going to be able to find me if I pass out on the side of the. I don't think it's the wise thing for me to do. Now, I begged them to go on, and I would go back to the car, and then the next day I would meet up with them somewhere, kind of easier to get to, but they would have none of it, and so we hiked back down to the car, changed the whole trip, and kind of everything just went downhill from there. So I'm deeply, deeply depressed, very embarrassed, completely ashamed, and I'm old. It dawned on me that I am old. Now, for those of you who don't know, in a couple of months, I will be 70. I'm not quite 70 yet, but I am knocking on the door. And so here's something I learned. When your friends say to you, well, I hope when I'm 70, I can do what you're doing, that doesn't make you feel better. When they say, I hope when I'm 70, that's the last thing you hear. I don't hear anything. They could say, I'm going to give you $1 million, and you wouldn't hear it. All I heard was 70. So that's it. That's the story. And now I don't want my wife to know, I'm going back. I'm going to train better. I'm going to get a lighter pack. I'm going to start earlier in the day. And I'm not going to let that mountain beat me. I'm going to go back and do it. So there you go. But I wanted to share some observations about some fine lines about getting older. Just some things that I've recognized there's a fine line between, as you start to get older, kind of recognizing this and learning to live with it. So here are 4 fine line things. One of them is there's a fine line between optimistic and oblivious. You know, as we get older, we begin to get negative. We begin to get pessimistic. We begin to look down about everything. The world's falling apart. The church is not what it once was. We get optimistic. Pessimistic. And we need to be optimistic. We need to be positive. We should be fun to be around, hopeful, but not oblivious. I was optimistic I could make it to the top. I was oblivious to the fact that I'm almost 70 years old and that it's a hard climb. So there's a fine line between being optimistic and being oblivious, and we have to walk that very carefully and very tentatively to make sure we're not attempting or doing the things that we shouldn't be doing. So there's also a fine line between being wise and being fearful. Again, as we get older, we can get fearful. I'm nervous about this. I'm afraid I might fall. It's easy to get fearful. I don't want to get fearful, but I want to be wise. And as we were walking, and I was thinking, okay, I don't want panic to set in. I don't want to say, okay, I'm going to die. I'm not going to die, but I also want to be judicious in the choices I make and the decisions I make. And that's true climbing a mountain or making investments or spending time with our family. Learning to be wise but not be fearful, I think, is an important step to take. There's a fine line between pushing yourself and protecting yourself. Quite honestly, as I get older, it's easy to not push myself. It's easy to sit back and rest and take naps. And I'm not even talking about the physical. I'm talking about about in every way, spiritual, emotional, working, all those things. There's a fine line between failing to push And come on, you can do this. Make yourself get up and take that walk. Make yourself take on this project. Make yourself be willing to teach that Sunday school class. There's a fine line between that and protecting yourself of saying, okay, I do recognize my energy is not what it once was. My cognitive abilities are not what they once were. I need to protect myself a little bit. So these fine lines, a fine line between being optimistic and being oblivious, between being wise and being fearful, a fine line between pushing myself and protecting myself. Here's another one. There's a fine line between being useful and being a nuisance. I want to be useful. I want to be helpful. I want to stay engaged. I want to know what's going on and be able to talk to younger people and offer some insight. But I don't want to be a nuisance. It's not about me. It's not about making sure that people understand how important I am. And it's very easy to say, well, I've done my part. I'm not needed anymore. I'm just going to fade off into the sunset and fail to be useful. On the other hand, it's also easy to say this is all about me and they should be singing my songs and they should be worshiping the way I want them to worship and they should be honoring the old people every service and all of those things. It's hard. It's hard, but I'm trying to walk that fine line between being useful and being a nuisance. So here's some things I'm trying to do. As I am older, I'm trying to get closer to God. I have more time. I have a better intentionality. I want this season of my life to be a season when I am closer to God than I've ever been. I'm trying to be more available to my children, to my grandchildren, to branches, to the church. Just be available. I don't have to be used. I don't have to be consulted, but just know that I'm here, that I have time for you. I'm trying to get sweeter. I want to be kinder. I don't want to be a grumpy old man. I'm trying to get sweeter, and I'm trying to make space for the next generation. I'm trying to make room to make sure that they understand, that I understand, that the best thing I can do is to make space for them and encourage them and support them. So I thought it might be helpful to share with you some of these fine lines that you might encounter as you get older and decide to climb a mountain. Recognize these fine lines. Which leads me, by the way, here's one last one. There's a fine line between a bucket list and kicking the bucket. I want to keep working on the bucket list, but if I'm not careful, I'm going to kick the bucket. I don't want to do that. Thank you for being a part of Monday Matters. Thank you for allowing me to hopefully be useful and not be a nuisance. Stay optimistic, stay sweet, get closer to God, and I will see you next Monday on Monday Matters. Each day I post on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, just a quick thought about this. I'll try to talk about aging gracefully this week. God bless you. Have a great, great week, and know that God loves you, and I do too.